Okay, hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining. My name is Richard from the Seneca team, and today we're going to look at how to use Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams and how they can be really used in conjunction with Seneca to make sure you basically get the most out of all of those apps. Now, the really nice thing about getting these few systems to all work together is that you actually, in isolation, they are obviously useful, but then when you use them together, they have a real potential to be really, really much more effective. So yeah, we're going to show you how they all link together and how they all work, and show you some of the basic functionality to get you started with that. Just a bit of housekeeping for the session is that you'll notice that you won't be able to unmute yourself in this call. That's just to make sure we're not all talking over each other at the same time. But obviously, if you want to ask questions, we want to give you the opportunity to do that. So what we need you to do is, if you want to ask a question at any time, just if you hover over my face with your mouse, then you'll be able to click on the chat at the bottom of the screen. And I can see some people are already typing in there already, which is great. So yeah, just ask any questions that you have as and when they come up. Don't feel like you have to wait for a certain period of the session. And what I'll do is towards the end, I'll come back and yeah, I'll be able to answer all those questions for you. I'm just seeing a few people who are saying that they can't hear anything. I just want to double check that there are people who can hear me on this call. It's not my audio that's the problem. Okay, great, fantastic. Yeah, so great. Thank you very much for confirming that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you now. I'm going to get going. And as I say, if you have any questions, just keep them coming up in the chat. So just to start off with the very basics, I'm going to talk through what Seneca is and a bit of the differences between something like Seneca and another program like Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. So to start off with Seneca and what it is, we offer a homework and distance learning platform. Now, as you can probably imagine, over the last 6 months or so, we've had a dramatic change in the way that people have used us, in the same way that we've all had massive changes to the way we operate in our work and in our normal lives. And it's no different with Seneca. So prior to coronavirus and lockdown and all that stuff, schools used us as a revision and a homework platform. And they would go away and use it to set homework, use in class, work in class, and also individual students would use it for their home learning and their revision. And obviously, when lockdown came, there was a big shift towards people delivering content online, and schools would use us much more as a sort of content delivery. So, and that's continuing. We're seeing that continuing where there are school closures or year groups being out of schools across the country. Now, obviously, we hope we don't return to any sort of lockdown, but obviously, if that does happen, you can be reassured that we are there to support and help if you need it. Now, some of the basic sort of things that I think are really worth mentioning about Seneca, that's just to highlight where we're coming from with what we have to offer, is that first of all, everything that we do is based on cognitive science. So the latest understanding of how people learn and how the brain works is automatically baked into the platform. So you don't need to worry about whether your students are using effective learning strategies or not. They automatically just happen within the platform. Secondly, everything on Seneca is automated. So in terms of your marking and your workload, that is much easier to manage. And then obviously you can track progress of your students when the marking is all done. So that we present data to you in a nice, simple way, so you can sort of see where students are struggling. And we also give the option to sort of reset work where students haven't met any particular a particular barrier that you want to set. Also, Seneca is adaptive. And what we mean by that is that the differentiation that you would do in a classroom happens automatically within Seneca. So if you stood behind two students and watched them go through the same learning session, you'd see two very different learning experiences based on how the students did, how they answered the questions that they saw, and we'd adapt the content accordingly, be that just giving students more support in particular areas, the more foundational concepts, or pushing students on through the foundational concepts quicker onto sort of more higher end, more challenging areas. So that sort of adaptiveness makes sure that the content students see is completely individualized. And also everything I show you on this webinar is free to use, and you could go away and sign up for it straight after the session. You don't need to dip into any budgets or get any permission to start using Seneca, because there's no need to pay any money or anything like that, which is always nice. Now, I spoke a bit about the cognitive science that we've implemented within the program. Now, we worked with a team of neuroscientists that specialize in education to basically understand how we could best develop the platform. But we obviously wanted to make sure that the way we had implemented the theory was effective. So what we did was we completed a randomized controlled trial with just over 1,100 pupils. And we found that very similar pre-test results when we're comparing the use of Seneca to another independent learning tool, like a revision guide, for example. We found that there were very similar pre-test results, but what you can see is in the post-test results, the students did over twice as well when they were using Seneca. So we see that very much as a validation that what we are doing is effective, and it has a positive impact on students. So we're really sort of pleased about that, and we're constantly trying to find ways of how we can improve that even further. Now, that research was peer reviewed and published. If you'd like to read about it more, you can go to one of these websites. If you just do a quick Google search, you'll find it. But otherwise, also feel free to ask any questions that you have as well. Now, in terms of the content that we have on Seneca, and this is where maybe the big difference, and start to explaining what the difference between something like Seneca and something like Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams is that Seneca provides content from, so like curriculum content from Key Stage 2, so the beginning of Year 3, right up to the end of A-level. So, and everything is either linked to the national curriculum at Key Stages 2 and 3, or it's for the exam board specs at Key Stage 4 and 5. So what that means is all the courses that are on there are really specific to what your students need to know at the right stage of their learning paths. And currently we've got about 3.75 million users who are pupils, and about 190,000 teachers using the platform, and just over 40,000 parents on our new parent accounts that we've just released recently. So we're really pleased that we're, as I say, given there's been this big shift to online learning, we're really pleased that we're going to be able to, we're aiming to help all these people for free and provide them with a high quality education. So, as I say, Seneca has content. This is the content we have. If you think about the difference between that and something like Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, what the difference between those is that Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom allow you to have communication and to organize like workflows and things like that. So it allows you to basically communicate with classes and things like that, but there's no content on either Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. You have to bring in your content from elsewhere. So that's where Seneca comes in and suddenly makes these Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams applications much more effective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just giving you a rundown of how the platform actually works, so you can see what it looks like, how it works. And when you first log in, what you'll see is I'll start with the basics, and I'll show you sort of how the integrations with Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams work as I go. So when you first log into Seneca, what you can do is you can start by creating a class. It's very simple. Just click this big Create Class button, and then you give it the class a name, whatever it is. And when you're ready, you just click Create, and that creates the class. Now you've got 4 steps three more steps to set up your class completely. First one will be to add courses. So at any point, you can just add some courses basically to tell your students which courses you want them to study. And if you need to get help, you just click Get Help just here. But we can just go straight in and add courses. And you can use the searches at the top here. You could also use the age group filters. So say I was looking for a GCSE course and I wanted to make a business studies course, for example. And the exam board is AQA. What I can do is then I can see, okay, I can select the GCSE courses that I want. I want these 3 courses that I'm going to add. Once I've selected those 3, I can just click Add Courses at the top of the page. And as simple as that, you've added some courses. Remember, all the content is already there and ready to use within those courses. But I'm not going to show you any of the student platform just because it's slightly outside the scope of this session. Now, secondly, we've got to create an assignment to mark that work automatically. Again, if we need help, we just click Get Help, but we can also just go straight in and create the assignment. Now you see those 3 business courses that I added, they're there already. And what you can do is just select whichever one you want. And then you need to basically choose what topics or what sections you want to set for your students. So if you're familiar with the Business Studies AQA GCSE course, you'll recognize the breakdown from the spec, and it'll be the same with any course that you study or that you choose, sorry. It will just be taken straight from the spec in terms of the breakdown of it and how it works. So once I've selected whatever topics I want to set for my students, one thing that's quite nice to note is this timing at the top there. So as you add more, it will give you, this will change, and it will give you suggestions of how long this work should take. But when you're ready, you just click assign. And then you give the assignment a name. So I can spell. And you can also set a start and an end date. So what the start and end date are really useful for is that if you're looking to plan forward into the future, say you want to do a whole half term's worth of setting work on Seneca, you can do that. And the assignments will only pop up for students after the start date has passed. So that's something quite nice to bear in mind and quite useful time saver for you. When you're ready though, just click create, and that will create that assignment for you. And then you've got that final step to add students to the class. So at the moment, we've just got a class, we've got some courses added to it. We've made our first assignment. Now we actually need some students to come in and complete that assignment. So we can just go here and invite students. Now there are a few different options you can use. So first of all, you can just copy the link. If you have something like Show My Homework or a VLE or any other shared area, you can just copy the link and paste it in there, send it to your students. You can also just email it to them if that's what you want to do. But for the scope of this session, we'll look at these 2 options in the middle, the Google Classroom and the Microsoft Teams. So I'll show you both processes one by one, starting with Google Classroom. So if I click on that Google Classroom link, it will take me through into Google Classroom. And the first thing you need to do is select the class you want to share it with. So I'm going to choose to share it with this Year 10 group. And then you need to choose an action. Now in Google Classroom, there are 4 different actions you can do. One of them is to create an assignment. One of them is to ask a question, make an announcement is another one, and the final one is create material. Now the only one that probably needs explaining is this final create material box or option. And what that can be used for in Google Classroom is things like basically creating any material that you want your students to have access to from this class. So say you're, for example, a science teacher, you might want to have access to a formula sheet or a formula booklet. You can upload a digital copy of that. You also might want, as an English teacher, to upload a PDF of a text, or say in history, maybe you could add a source from your a source for some sort of topic they're looking at. So you could add that in as creating material. Now, for this example, what we're trying to do is we are trying to create an announcement, because we're trying to tell students actually this Seneca class has been set up and we're ready to go with it. So I'm going to make this announcement and I'm going to click go. Now you'll see this link's been generated automatically, so your students just need to click on that when the time comes. But you can write a little custom message. Something like that. Click the link to access the class. And you can also just set it for some students if you want. If you've got these options down the side here, you can just set it for some. And the other thing that's quite nice to note is this: you either can post straight away, or we've got this little down arrow here. So what you can use that for is you can schedule the post for later, you can save it as a draft and come back and edit it later, or just discard. But what we'll do is we'll just post that for now so you can see what happens. And then you can have the option to view that post in your classroom. So the important thing to say about both Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom is that however it looks to you on your page, it will look the same for students. So they try and keep the interface really, really simple. And what you'll see is here this has gone into what's called the stream, which is basically like the message board on Google Classroom. So you can see here, we've got click the link to access the class. And if I, as a student, was to come in here and click on that link, it would take me through to Seneca. And if I wasn't already signed in, it would say, please, can you sign in? But as I'm already signed in, it will just give me confirmation when it loads that I have joined that class. So there you go, you've just joined class name, which remember is the name I gave that class. And it gives the students some information here. And then if I click continue, it will take me through to that class. I've got the 3 subjects or the 3 courses that I added, and that assignment I've set is here already added as well. And the student can just start learning. So it's a very straightforward process. The other thing to show you is what happens on Microsoft Teams. So again, it's quite a similar process, but I'll just show you, talk you through it. So this time I'm wanting to share that invite link on Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to click that. And then what I do is I will share that link in a team or a channel. Now, this is a slightly different setup that they have in Microsoft Teams. So you have teams, which could be like a department maybe, and you have channels within that team, which are like classes. So you could have classes, say you could have a team, which is a maths team, and then you could have the different classes that are taught within maths underneath that. So you can just search for your teams and your channels underneath. And then you click Year 10 Maths. And then again, you can write a similar message in there that you want to send to your students. And then in the bottom corner here, you just click share. And it gives you that confirmation that your link has been shared. And then if you go into Microsoft Teams, you'll see that this one at 16:17 has just been shared. And if the student clicks on this link, then it will take them through that same process I just showed you on Google Classroom. So that is inviting students. What you're also able to do once you have the class set up is to invite students to assignments. So again, I'll show you that quickly. So now this, if I just move on to a class that actually has some students in. If I want to share an assignment with a class through Teams or Classroom, I can just create a new assignment on Seneca by clicking Add Assignment. Again, I can choose one of the courses that I've added to the class. I select the sections I want in the same way as I did before. And I can assign that to my students. And then I can share that with my students through here. This time a list of names have come up because I've actually got some students in this class now. And I can give it a name and a start and an end date, just like before. And then again, I click create. Now this time, and every time you make an assignment after the first one, it will give you the option to share that assignment with your class through different ways. So again, you've got to copy a link or email. But I'll show you both of these middle 2 setups as well, starting with Classroom. So if you want to share that invitation to the assignment on Classroom, just click on Classroom, and you'll notice it's a very similar process. You first of all select the class. You then select the action. This time I'm going to create an assignment, which is slightly different than before. And because it makes sense to have assignment in Seneca and assignment in Classroom. Give it a name, whatever you want, and a message. And you've got a few more options down the side here now. So you've got here, again, you can just choose for some students if you want. You can also, if you're using the marked book on Google Classroom, you can use it to set a number of points or leave it as unmarked. And you can also set a due date. So here you can set a due date of whatever you want. And you can also create a topic for it to go under. Now I'll leave that as no topic for the moment because I'll show you what that topic functionality does in a second. But when you're ready, you can just click assign. And again, it will post, it'll give you an option to view the post if you want. And this will take you through to the stream in your Google Classroom, and you'll be able to see that the assignment has posted there, this one at 16:20. There it is, ready to go. And if a student was to click on this, it would take them through to their assignment. Now, the difference with assignments and announcements or other types of messages you can send on Google Classroom is that an assignment will also go into the classwork tab. Now, this is really where you organize the content that you want the students to access, be that Seneca sessions or anything else. So what you'll see, this is the assignment I've just created. And at the moment, it's just popped up at the top here. Now, remember, however it appears for me on my Google Classroom, it will appear for my students the same. So what you can do is actually use topics to organize the content that you've uploaded. So at the moment, it's just there, but if I want to add it to a specific topic, I can just drag it down and I can pop it wherever I want. I'm going to pop it here and you'll see it as added then to topic 3 in this case. Now, that's, as I say, the process on Google Classroom. Let's again show you the process on Teams. So again, if we want to share that assignment on Teams this time, click on the Microsoft Teams button. And again, we choose the channel. So I'll choose that same Year 10 Maths group, write them a little message, whatever it is that makes sense for your class, and then click share when you're ready. And again, you get that confirmation. And if we go into Microsoft Teams, we'll see at 16:22, the link, click the link for the assignment. And if I click that link either through here or through Google Classroom, it would just take me through to that assignment for those students. So it's as simple as that. The next thing you hope is that some students start completing some work. So once students start completing work, then you can obviously then see all the data. As I said earlier, everything's marked automatically. You can then see the data and understand where your students are struggling, where they're doing really well. So let me show you how to do that. So if I go into this class I've got here, what I can do is I can, if I go into assignments first of all, what you can do is you can see upcoming assignments I've got here. You can also see some past assignments as well. So say this one, for example, I can click on this, and if I want to see the data, first of all, at the top, I've got some basic information on, I can see 24 have completed it, 16 have not yet completed it. And I can also see average scores from across the class. But if I scroll down, what that allows me to do then is really dig into individual students and how well they've done. So you can see this status. We've got crosses for the people who haven't done it and ticks for the people who have. And then you can see nicely red, amber, green, exactly what your students have and haven't understood. So you can really understand where your students are struggling most. Now, what you can do also is you can sort by any of these columns. So say you want to see under this section here, you want to see how students have done. You can sort first of all by worst to best. So you can see Jacqueline here hasn't done so well. We might need to give some more support to Jacqueline. If you click the header again, it will just go best to worst, and you can see that there are a few students here who've done really well. So that, you can do that with any of the columns, and you can also change the metrics. So at the moment we've got best score selected, but we can change that to other metrics like most recent attempt, and then that will just change the data. So if I show you how that works, you see, it will just change all the data accordingly, so you can see what your students have done most recently. But the other options are you can see their worst score, their average score, the number of attempts they've done, and also the total study time. So you can see a whole host of different data there. Now, the other thing you can do is obviously thinking about these scores. You're going to want to think, okay, Ethan here, he's got a couple that he's struggled with. I should probably make sure I check in with Ethan or give him some extra support or intervention in place to support him to make sure that he is not just falling by the wayside with this. And we know that that can be quite difficult as a teacher to put something in place. But what we can do is allow you to basically automatically regenerate sessions based on how well students have done. So say, for example, you wanted to reset some work for some students based on this data. If you just scroll to the top, you've got this smart reassign function. You click on that. You can choose to reset the work in whatever way you want. So I want to reassign this work for anyone who didn't complete a section and anyone who got less than 50%, any sections that people got less than 50% in. So if you click reassign, you give it a name again, whatever it is, and a start and an end date, just like before. And then when you click reassign, what you'll see is it will automatically reset the work for those students who didn't meet the criteria you selected. So again, you can share it if you want, but if you just close that, you can then see we've got some students who are NS, so not set, and then NA is not completed yet. So you can see that actually there are a number of students who have had work automatically reset for them based on how well they've done. And it's a really quick way to help students support students to catch up on the work they've struggled with most. Now this is, and the other important thing to say is the session that they have will not be the same as the session they had before. Remember I talked about Seneca being adaptive earlier. So we will know what the student did last time, how long it's been since they've studied the course, and we will adapt the session accordingly. So you'll be able to, the student will be able to have something that's tailored to them and understands their needs. So this is obviously seeing work that you've set, but as I mentioned right at the beginning, a lot of students use this for independent study as well. And you're probably going to want to think, okay, how can I see that work through independent study? And what you can do is use this Insights tab to do that. So if you click Insights, what you can do is choose a particular course that you want to see data for, the metric from the same metrics we had before, best score, worst score, etc. And then you can also set a date range as well. So I can see data from the last 30 days, the last 24 hours, the last year, or a custom date range as well, if that's useful. I can put in just like, I want to see it from the 1st of September, say, for example, until today. I can do that. So I then need to select the sections I want to see data for. So if I click that, I can again go in, just like when I was setting the assignments, I can just select the sections I want to see data for, whatever it is you want. And then when you've selected the ones you want, just click select sections. Again, give the data a moment to load, and then you're taken through and you can see all the data in the same way as you did before with assignments. But this time it's just over the period you've selected and the course you've selected. So again, you can sort by any of these columns, and soon you'll be able to reassign from here as well. Just like with the assignments, you'll be able to do the smart reassign function as well. Now, the final place you can see data on Seneca is through the Students tab. If you click on Students, you'll see that we have some different options like total learning time, the average score overall, the number of sessions they've completed, and the number of correct answers. Now, all of these things will populate based on the date range and the course you select at the top. So again, that's really useful if you're thinking about trying to incentivize use of Seneca, have like a high level number you can share with your students about how well they're doing and how much time they're spending on Seneca. Now, I should have mentioned this before, but anywhere there is data, so be that in assignments, insights, or in students, you can actually download this to CSV. So again, when we're thinking about linking this up with our Markbook in Google Classroom, we can download that to CSV and then we can upload it to Google Classroom if that's something you want to do. Now, the final thing to share with you on Seneca, and then I'll go back onto Teams, is that if you want to share, so if you are a class teacher who shares teaching with another class, we give you the option to add other teachers to the class. So you can just do it by adding a teacher here and putting their email address in here. They'll get an email and they just need to accept that they want to be part of the class. That's also really useful if you're wanting to set this up as a head of department or an SLT member, and you want to have access to all the data in your department. What you can actually do is get your teachers to invite you to that class, and then that will allow you to see all the data of the students in the classes in your department or in your school. So there's a couple of really good, useful ways that you can use that. Now, The final thing to show you is on Teams, and it's a really useful feature. Unfortunately, it's not an option on Google Classroom, but on Teams, what you can actually do is add these custom tabs at the top here. So you see I've got a Seneca one up here. And what that allows you to do is keep everything within Teams, so it all stays in there. If you click on Seneca one, it will just load up as your Seneca account, and your students will be able to obviously log into their accounts as well from this tab as well. Now, if you want to do that, it's very easy to set up. You just click on this little plus button here. You might need to ask your IT team for the right permissions to do this, but if you have the right permissions, you'll be able to do it. And then you can add a whole host of different apps here. So you can add everything from like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, whatever it is. But you can also add other things like other third-party apps as well. And there's a whole host of stuff there to make your life easier. But if you want to just add Seneca as one of them, what you can do is just add a website. And if you give something like Seneca 1 or something, and if you just post the web address you want to navigate to every time you open that, so I recommend doing this https://app.senecalearning.com. If you add that in and then click save, just as quick as that, you've made a little Seneca tab, and you'll see that it opens up as a tab in here as an extra tab. Now, the very final thing to say on Seneca is that within Seneca, what you can do is you can actually set up parent accounts as well. Now, there's a load of research that suggests that using parent accounts, parents' engagement in students' work is really, really beneficial in terms of improving their outcomes. So what we've done is we've worked really hard to basically allow parents to do that and have free accounts where they can see how their kids are doing, and they can keep an eye on what they're up to. So what you'll see is you can have different students here. So I've got a couple of different students on here, and I can see what my child's been up to and how much time they've been spending on Seneca, and some basic information that you will be able to see on your teacher platform to understand exactly how my child's been doing, and allow some really early identification of any issues that there might be. So you can see average scores here in my GCSE geography are not doing particularly well. So it allows the parents to sort of identify that nice and early. Now, from your guys' perspective as teachers, it's also going to be potentially really useful in terms of easing the parent communication that you may want to have with your parents. Commonly, it's a very difficult thing to get right and to do well in schools, but this should make that process a little bit easier for you. So that's all I wanted to basically show you on Teams, Classroom, and Seneca. I'm just going to come back to the call and see if there's any questions that people have, and I'll just run through those with you. So if you haven't had a chance to add your question in just yet, please do it now, and I will go through them and answer those. So a question from Amy. So is it correct you have to pay to set up if you want to set up more than 2 classes? No, you don't have to pay to set up any number of classes. You can have an unlimited number of classes for free. There's everything I've shown you today is free, and it's on free to an unlimited perspective. Question from Lana is, I had a student who got a D in her mock, and then she spent 121 hours in Seneca and got an A in her A-level biology. Well, congratulations to your student, Lana. Well, fantastic. It wasn't a question, it's more of a statement. So thanks, Lana. I'm glad your student did so well in their exams, and I'm glad we were able to help with that. Question from Carol is there any reason why BTech is not included in the qualification? So we do actually have some BTech courses, Carol. We have BTech Applied Science and Business at the moment, and we are planning to add more BTechs as time goes on. It's purely because at the moment we had to prioritize the courses we developed basically based on enrollment numbers. So we've worked through GCSEs, and we're going to be adding BTechs in due course. I don't have a time frame on that, I'm afraid, but it's something we will want to do with all qualifications in the end. And also this will be the same for any course requests that come up. I'll make a note of them and make sure I pass them on to the team. But we'll see, we'll have to try and balance the different priorities we have with those while making them. A question from Zoe is this session recorded? It'd be really useful to share with my team. So yes, Zoe, it is. So what you can do is if you go onto our Seneca CPD YouTube channel, which I will post in the I'll post in the chat for everyone. So if you just look at the most recent message now, I've just posted a link to this exact stream, so you'll be able to share this with your teams if that's useful to you. Okay, question from Abigail is, can you please clarify why an announcement is better than assignment when setting Seneca work? So for Abigail, what I'd suggest is using announcement when you share the class link. So that's just because it just goes, it's not a piece of work to complete as such, it's just they need to click on the link to join the class on Seneca. So it's an announcement that the class is being created. Whereas actually to use an assignment is better if you're using assignment with Seneca. So it's got two different uses there. Question from M. Lunt is, are there any plans to incorporate marks being pulled through from Seneca into Google Classroom assignment to auto-populate the mark book? So yes, that would be great if we could do that. It's definitely something we'd like to add in the future. The other thing we're looking to bring in with regards to both Microsoft and Google is single sign-on. So for schools that have single sign-on set up in your schools, we're also looking to add that in to help with logins and things like that. I should say, by the way, to add to Abigail's point about marks pulling through, is what you can do is you can transfer them across if you download it to CSV, and then you can upload it to your assignment. Okay, question from Carol is, can you share an announcement on all channels on Teams in one click? So within Teams, you can just share to one channel at a time or one team at a time. But also bear in mind that within your Seneca, you probably want to invite each channel to a different class. So you'll want to make a different announcement for each one. George, yes, the names are fake, don't worry. George was saying he hopes the names of the students are fake because of GDPR. So yes, don't worry, that all the data and names were made up. Question from Miss F Driver is, how do you know how many marks an assignment is worth to set a number of points? So with a Seneca assignment, there's no fixed number of questions that there'll be, because the length of the session depends on how well the student's doing it. So if the students really quickly show an aptitude for the concept, we will move them on quicker than a student who is seeming to be struggling. So this is to make sure that they get the content that they need to use in order to develop themselves as well as possible. So there's no set number of questions, but there is obviously a percentage that we provide you. So we give you a percentage score of how many questions the student got right. Okay, a question from Ian says, does the link to Teams for a Seneca assignment become a Teams assignment, or simply a link in chat? So at the moment, Ian, it just becomes a link in chat, I'm afraid. It doesn't become an assignment. Question from Carol is, would the students be able to view their progress too? So yes, when a student goes in, actually I can show you that. That's really the best thing to do. If I just share my screen with you again. When a student goes into an assignment, so this is what the students see. They can go into their classes and assignments. And if they see their assignments in here, they will see, you'll see here, there are little dashes here. Let's see if there's one that's filled in, no. But you'll see the little dashes here. What you'll notice is that these will basically, as students complete them, they'll just fill up with the percentage, and also the red, amber, green will show as well. So you can do things like say to your students, I want you all to get green on your assignments, and that will show up here. Question from Michelle is, does the status which is the little clock, mean that they've completed it late? The answer is yes. Yes, that is exactly what it means. Okay, question from Abigail is, how do you upload the CSV to Google Classroom? I'm not sure how that, I've not had experience using that feature, I'm afraid, but I believe it is an option. It may be something you need to check out on Google Classroom. Okay, question from Bryony says, I had something to deal with at school, so I missed most of the meeting. Is the recording somewhere? So just to reiterate, I've posted a link in the chat to this exact recording. So if you'd like to rewatch it or you'd like to share it back again, then feel free to share it with another teacher or anything like that. Feel free to do that. Question from Amy is, do students have to give emails when joining a class? So to make sure that students' accounts are personal to them, we have to have some way of identifying them. So obviously a name is not unique to the student, because obviously you can have multiple students with the same name. However, an email address is. So we do need an email address for students to sign up, and for their data to be saved beyond just where they're working. So if they want to save and come back to their work, or if they want a teacher to be able to access the data, they need to have an account with us, and that means they need to sign up for an account, yes. Oh yes, so it should be, a couple of people clarified this afterwards for me, but yeah, I should say, so that the email addresses are only visible to the student themselves and to you. So yeah, so there's no other issues with that. The other thing to say is in terms of like GDPR compliance and things like that, the student has to give, by clicking the link and agreeing to join the class, they are agreeing to share data with you, including their email. So again, there's no issues with GDPR with respect to that. Question from Lucy is, how does Seneca make money? Thanks, that it is great. Well, so I'm glad you like it, Lucy. The way we make money is that we don't actually make a lot of money. We're not about a business who are trying to make lots of money. We are not for profit, and we want to, our main mission is making sure we can provide a free education for as many students as possible. But the way we cover our costs is that we basically have a premium offering as well. So if students want to purchase premium on top of our free package, or if schools want to purchase premium, then they're welcome to do so. And there is a charge for that. And that's how we cover the cost of keeping the platform free for everyone else. So I talked earlier about, we've got 3.75 million students using us. Over 95% of those will be free users, and then the 5%-ish help us cover the costs, keeping that free for everyone else. And the question from Abigail is, how do you set up a parent account? So the parent just needs to go to senecalearning.com and click parent start here to make an account. Okay, are there any plans to add Welsh medium courses? So unfortunately at the moment we tried to sort of work with the Welsh government on this. They sort of weren't, basically we struggled to come to an agreement on getting the translation sorted. But we'd love to offer Welsh courses, but we do offer WJC and EduCAS exam boards in English. Another question from AHO says, can you explain the diagnostic assessment section for each course, please? So there's two different things you might be talking about here that I just want to clarify. I'll talk about both. So the diagnostic misconception courses that we have, those are courses that go through the most common misconceptions that students have across each course. And they basically, first of all, identify if the student has those misconceptions. And then also the aim is of those courses to correct those misconceptions. So there's a mixture of questions, first of all, and then content to help the students if they're struggling. And then you can obviously use them to identify where the misconceptions your students struggle with most. Now, if you might also be talking about the actual data on how you access that from an assessment. But if you want that data, you just need to click on assignments, and then it goes through and it will be red, amber, green, as I showed you earlier. Okay, quick question from Justine is, how soon will the recording be available on the YouTube channel? Will there be a delay? So no, it will be on there right now if you go on there and add it in or watch it now, so you can watch it straight away. Okay, are there any other questions? If there are, please do get them in the chat before I head off. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining. It's been great to share this with you. As I say, if you do want to watch this back again, then go to the Seneca YouTube channel that I've posted in the chat. If you want your certificates, then please do check the email I send you after this. You'll get a link to sign up to that. And if you want to ask any other questions or need any help setting up, there's the live chat that is on your teacher account. If you just talk to our team, you'll get through to my colleague Lucy, and she'll be able to help you with any help that you need. But anyway, thank you very much for joining, and I hope you have a great evening.